Welcome everyone to another one-on-one tech talk. Today I'm joined again by Dhollander, one of the sharpest minds when it comes to industrial data. Thomas, it's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Let's start with a metaphor we both love. Why is raw IoT and OT data like crude oil?
Well, you could say it's like crude oil because raw data is abundant, but it needs refinement before you can put it to real use. So crude oil was very instrumental in shaping the industrial age, and industrial IoT data or OT data can also be instrumental in shaping that next age of autonomous industry. But in its raw form, it's messy, it lacks context, it's full of noise and all kinds of artifacts. So it requires significant refinement before you can actually use it reliably in analytics and AI at scale. If you don't do that, then your insights risk to be contaminated and the trust in the data erodes. And that's why we like to believe that you need to build data refineries.
So if crude oil becomes fuel and plastics, what does a data refinery actually produce? Can you weigh in on that?
It's about turning noisy, messy input into data products at different quality levels, different grades, much like oil refineries indeed too. They produce products at different purity levels or grades like diesel or kerosene or gasoline. And that's important because you don't want to put kerosene in your sports car. So you need to have the right expectations regarding the data that you use in different use cases. And that's where the notion of a data product comes into play. You can think of it like a distillation column, which has different levels and different gates that the product goes through. And as the product goes through, it becomes more refined, it becomes more trustworthy and more valuable. And that's also what's happening with data there. So maybe we can go and take a look at how the data refinery gates then look, which gates are part of that refinery, or could be part of that refinery. On the lowest level, you have making the data accessible, which is obviously a prerequisite for the data to become usable. It's about connecting to the data, being able to query it, read it, and so on. Then on top of that, you have a gate that the data goes through to make it structured, make it contextualized. That data is important, and for IoT data, it means adding asset information to the data, asset metadata, some other crucial context, and vendors like HiByte, for instance, have good solutions to do that at the edge. Then if you go to a next gate, it's about verification of data, making sure that you verify the data regarding accuracy, regarding validity, consistency, timeliness. The data quality comes into play here in its purest form. At Times here, we've done a lot of work in that respect. And if you go to the next gates, it's about cleaning data. That's not always needed, but some data products do require the data to be cleansed as part of the pipeline to create data that's ready for consumption. If you move further up, it's about annotating data and adding additional expert context to it. Then you can also go further and you can actually validate data, meaning that someone data steward, and we'll talk about the roles and what they mean, I guess, further down, but that a data steward actually commits that the data is fit for use and makes that explicit. So that's the validation step. Some critical business processes require data to be explicitly validated. And then if you move even further up, the data is ready to be shared. And that sharing can happen internally, externally with suppliers or customers. There's very interesting solutions for data sharing these days. You have Delta sharing on the Databricks side. You also have platforms like Aviva Connect for sharing data there. And then you obviously, once the data is ready, it's shareable, you can also start adding capabilities like visualization of the data. Maybe you do that in Power BI, and then modeling and prediction as final steps if you go even further in making the data valuable for deeper insights. And so that's what you could call a data refinery. And it's key that that data product that comes out of that refinery in different levels contains the data, but also everything that is needed for consumers to use it independently, right? And one important factor in that is the data quality and the expectations with respect to data quality.
Can you maybe, as a last remark on this topic, explain where Times here plays a role in this refinery?
Yes, so we are playing a role in many of these phases, but our core really is about the verification of data, the cleaning of data, the annotation, the validation, that middle part of that refinery is really what we specialize in. We
Yeah.
also have some capabilities of structuring the data, but other vendors like Naviva by Asset Framework, for instance, can also do a good job in structuring data. So we play nice with other vendors that might also cover part of this refinery because it's a big scope to cover and put in place. The whole concept, by the way, also relates to something like a medallion architecture, more on the data ops side, a typical term in the lake houses, for instance. So if you think about Databricks medallion architecture or Microsoft Fabric medallion architecture, we can also plug into that and work with a structure that you have in place to implement the medallion architecture for your data, for instance.
So fit in the landscape and not cannibalizing the entire refinery, right? Is that like a summary where you would play a role of times here?
That's right. We're quite flexible in where we plug in and which levels we cover or don't cover in this
Yeah.
challenge of building that refinery. Indeed.
You've mentioned data quality a few times already. It's a buzzword, a popular word, but how do you define it in industrial environments?
I, uh, there's basically two definitions that I like of data quality. So let me throw them both in. One is if you think about sensor data, you want it to reliably represent the underlying physical world and how that evolves. So everything that basically scores how well the data from the that you have gathered from the sensor actually describes the physical world is one way to look at data quality, and that means it needs to be accurate, it needs to be timely, so there's no big delays because otherwise you're looking at stale data and so on. So there's different quality dimensions that come into play there. If you take another definition, which is also a good one, I think it's making it a bit broader. It's saying that data quality or qualitative data is data that is fit for purpose. And that makes it even more explicit that what data quality is or good data quality is depends on how you're going to use that data, which is exactly what I was going into
Yeah.
with the data products on different levels. It also means that things like structuring data or adding context to it, making it discoverable, for instance, are an implicit part of data quality according to that second definition. I like that slightly broader scope of defining what data quality is or means.
Is that definition that different than the data quality on the IT side rather than the OT side?
Not really, but what it entails or how you get to it and what you need to do to guarantee good data quality, that can differ quite a bit because there are quite some differences between characteristics of those IoT and OT data and typical characteristics of IT data. So in that sense, the effort you need to go through or the solutions that are good to use to do one or the other might differ.
The data quality issues, data downtime is a consequence of what happens with sensor data in our example. Can you give some sense on what typically shows up in raw sensor data streams? What are common issues we find there?
Well, yeah, in short, sensors fail in all the messy ways that the physical world can fail, right? So that is a whole bunch of different causes. It's not just causes in IT systems or even OT systems. It starts at the sensor itself, which can be mounted incorrectly. It can be unreliable in terms of the data it gives, it submits. It can get stuck. It can drift. It can be wrongly calibrated. It can be configured with the wrong units of measurement. You get level shifts in data you see. There are flat lines occurring, spikes, oscillations, jumps that are not probable. Noise popping up, missing data, obviously compression artifacts. There's all kinds of things that go wrong with that data on those different levels. So the sensor is one level, and then as you go through the OT layers of the stack and then later the IT layers of the stack, there's things that can go wrong on these layers as well. And of course, yeah, it's also the characteristics of the data play a role as well. As some data is rather specific in its characteristics, like very bursty data, very cyclical data. You have different data types to deal with as well. But in short, the problems are rooted in the messiness of the physical world and what happens there. And that's, I think, far more complex than what's happening on the IT side, where data is often coming from software systems, for instance. So we have a challenge to deal with that IoT data or that OT data there.
So basically, instead of feeding analytics and AI with truth, it's being fed with lies. No wonder so many analytics projects are failing, right?
Absolutely, that's a big challenge, and we see many companies trying to scale modeling, trying to scale analytics, but lots of them still have a lot of homework to do on the data infrastructure side and on the data management side. And that's also why you see industrial data management is popping up these days as a very hot topic. If you look at the Gartner hype cycle, it's right on top of that cycle, meaning that it has a lot of attention these days. And for good reasons. We have been putting lots of attention in the modeling side of things and very little attention in the data side of things. And that's about time that changes.
The topic on fit for purpose I really like. Is fit for purpose always the same definition, or does it depend on the data product or on the use case?
It depends very much on what you want to do with the data, how you want to put it to use. So that's exactly the strength, but also the complexity of that definition. Now, what's most important if you're dealing with data products, you're obviously building them for a reason because you expect people to be able to use them in a valuable way. That's why you need to look at data quality in that context of the data product and the use of the data product that you envision.
One of the persons in our advisory board who works for Microsoft once compared it fit for purpose with a water filter, because the requirements of water in your house are really different depending on the use case also. Like if you're showering, your water needs to be not that good than, for example, what you drink, or for ice cubes, it needs to be cubes. It was a good metaphor, I still remember it, but that's fit for purpose.
Yeah, it's a good metaphor. If you bring it down to, let's say, the real use cases in the industry, then it's simple things. It means that if you use data in a real-time feedback loop, it's going to have different requirements with respect to how up to date it needs to be, for instance, and if you're using it in some kind of report on a monthly basis. So what you do with the data determines what expectations need to be satisfied. And that's why it's so important to make that data quality expectation explicit when you're sharing data or when you make data available to people. Because if you don't, then you risk indeed that people fill up their sports car with kerosene, which is not going to be working, right?
From water filters, water utilities, back to refineries. Who's
Mhm.
actually building and running this thing inside an industrial company? Can you elaborate on that?
If you think about a refinery, that's also true for a refinery. It's not run by one person, right? It's a team sport. So there's different roles involved. How many people are involved depends a bit on the size of your implementation there. But there's different roles that are involved. One of the key roles, or let's look at some of the key roles maybe. If you look at this picture, you see some of them depicted here. There is on the basis, you have people involved on the infrastructure side of things. The data platform engineer, which is responsible, there might be multiple, of course, but responsible for the core data platform and data infrastructure. That might be OT specific systems, but could also be a lakehouse infrastructure, for instance. Then you have the data engineer. If you move to the top, the data engineer is responsible for configuring pipelines through which the data flows, like the connectivity of the data to the source, structuring the pipeline, orchestration, also the scoring of the data. He can play a role in configuring those things. If you move then to the more towards the right, you see that the data steward or the subject matter expert. Now, a data steward or subject matter expert, it sounds abstract, but it's typically a role that is taken up by people like production engineers, E&I engineers, maintenance, reliability people, maybe an energy manager. So it's business roles that take the responsibility that the data quality is actually managed and the data is fit, and that the right processes are in place or the right quality checks are in place for that. And then if you move further to the right, you have people that are either part of your data product team or are consumers of the data product, like analysts, data scientists, ML engineers that are involved in either analyzing the data from a business point of view or in building machine learning models on top of. So if you look at this picture, you have two layers, and that's important. If you horizontally, so you have the bottom layer, which is more the infrastructure layer, where you're kind of making in pieces of infrastructure available to the teams on top to be efficient and to scale the implementation of use cases. And then on top you have the teams. They are responsible. So There might be different teams of combinations of data engineers and data stewards that take responsibility each for one or more data products. But there might be multiple teams like that operating on top of that data infrastructure or using that data infrastructure. And that's also how we see a bigger scale organization is organized around those two pillars, where you have people responsible from an infrastructure point of view that are kind of supporting those business teams that want to implement use cases by providing good platforms, good infrastructure for them to work.
Yeah. Let me challenge you for a second, Thomas, because manufacturers, you're short in skilled people, not enough hands for to complete the digital transformation. But isn't building a data refinery yet, or just another big task for them, where they don't have time for or resources?
Well, the good news is that not all these roles that I showed on that previous picture are new hires. You don't need new hires, you need new responsibilities. Maybe that also means you need some more people that are data skilled, and you might have to train your people to do that. But most likely, the people that you saw in that scheme are already part of your organization. If I mention a data steward, it's most likely a responsibility that someone takes that is already involved today in a digital twin initiative, for instance, that kind of formally then assumes the role of a data steward. One person can also sometimes wear multiple hats, so it doesn't need to be as many people as there are roles either. And you already get cover quite a distance sometimes by having one or two people taking those explicit responsibilities for your core data products in your landscape. Then there is a second thing that is the tooling you're using. And so I talked about the platform team and that is kind of responsible more for making good supporting tools and platforms available. If you make a good selection there are products that actually, tool sets that actually make it easier for less technical people to combine multiple roles. If we talk about a data engineer, you have products. We also do an attempt there to make low code data engineering tools available. So business people that maybe are acting primarily as a data steward can also assume the role of a data engineer, and you don't even need that data engineer hire. So by doing those things, you can really scale without hiring too many people. And in the end, if you don't do this, but you still are growing, the use of the data is growing, but you're not putting any organization in place, you're going to end up in a firefighting reactive mess. And that's going to consume a lot more resources than if you're taking a little bit of a structural approach to this.
So in a way, you're democratizing data engineering for subject matter experts, and the other part, you're also bringing efficiency to people who are already doing it.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Do companies already have such a structured approach today to data management? And if not, why not?
Some do, but the reality is that most companies still patch data downstream, and that doesn't really scale. So they're patching data downstream, meaning with the end use case, and they are kind of trying to get the data good enough in each end use case separately without having a structural approach to this. There's a number of reasons why that is happening still today. One is that data that's good enough for operations is not necessarily good enough for other use cases, and people don't always realize that. So if you have someone from operations sharing data to the other teams in the company, then they might think that because the data is good enough to run the factory or to keep the factory running, it's also good enough to build a model or to cover some other use cases. But often it lacks context. It's just not clear from a quality expectation what to expect from the data, and those projects then fail. A second factor in this is that data prep and data cleaning is just not as much fun as building models. And so traditionally, people have put a lot of attention on the modeling side. But in order to get better models, the data is absolutely key, of course. And the last thing, and I think we have a good picture for that, is if you think about scaling up from pilot implementations, one-off use cases to at-scale digital transformation. You can do that in two ways. Either you do this ad hoc, use case by use case, reinventing basically what is needed, or you do that with that two-tier approach that I presented with the infrastructure layer and then the use cases on top. If you follow the second approach, then you're going to be scaling much faster, not initially, but after a while. Because if you do a pilot, the first implementation, manual cleanup is still feasible, but if you want to scale, that is no longer as efficient. And the picture that we're showing here is one from David Ariens from the IoT Insider, which did a good job in showing that or making that.
So before you can build digital twins AI evolved to advanced analytics, in a way you need to refine the data first. That's what you were pointing out here.
Yes, and the degree to which that needs to be refined depends on the use case, depends on what fit for purpose means, and what the data product is that your products are that you are mining.
I would say, Thomas, thanks for making this refinery story real for us today. For everyone listening, if your raw sensor data is still crude oil, maybe it's time to start refining it.